Hello, everybody! It is Rocco, you boy, coming at you once again with another Age of Sigmar video. In this AoS 101 class, you know, we gotta talk, dear viewer. Now, since my return for 4th edition, after my death was greatly exaggerated as being a content creator, we've had a surge of people searching videos. One being the first video I dropped. It'll be in the card around there. Two is people are looking... Listen, this channel is known for two things. One, how much I love the New York Mets and that I not subtly wear any of their stuff that I can. And two, I teach people how to get better at Warhammer Age of Sigmar. And though this hasn't been an actually asked question yet, I checked the comments. We need to do a new video, which is this video, for how to play 4th edition. What's in a turn? Because people keep searching the old video for 3rd edition. I'm going to leave it up there anyway because it's like listed as 3rd edition. It's like, you know, archived for historical purposes if you want to go back and play 3rd edition. It's a fun edition. I liked it. I like 2nd edition too. I still have 2nd edition stuff. But, you know, the point is, here we are together. How do we do this? Alright, so first, this is just the core rules. This is from Games Workshop, Warhammer Community. They're free. The rules are free. I know. Thank God. But here we are. Again, I'm going to assume both of players have picked their armies before playing. You checked out my list building video. You did, right? Yeah, that was the card earlier. Come on, stay with me here. And you've checked a battle plan. And this is just a nice example battle plan here. Now we're going to get into some... If you've been here since 3rd edition, a lot of this is going to seem similar, but like slightly tweaked. If you're brand new to 4th edition, welcome. And if you're returning still, welcome. Hi, I missed you all. This is great. So we're going to start off with the battle plan. You pick the battle plan. Here's a map just to understand what's going on. It will list the objectives. The squares on the battle map are 11 inches by 15. So that'll be a 60-inch long, 44-inch wide table. These lovely little dots here are the objectives. So we got a compass to point north, so everyone's got the same kind of like idea of which side the defender should be on, which side the attacker stands on. We go from there. We've got, you know, your different territories, which key off a lot of abilities in the game. Say like Zangor on foot get exploding hits 2, critical hit 2 if they're in the opposing territory. So knowing these territories is nice. Middle is a neutral zone. Nobody's got it. And then you got some, what, you know, could be the other player's territory or the attacker's territory there. And going down, many battlefields have locations called objectives. It just goes over what I just said. And the battle pack will say generally like, okay, hey, you know, who sets up first, who does what. The attacker goes and, you know, pick sides, the defender sets up terrain, that kind of deal. But if you're generally going to a tournament, the tournament organizers will... I'm looking right in the camera for you there, bud. The tournament organizers will set up the terrain how they want it to be set up. If you're going to a narrative event, run by tournament organizers, run by event organizers, they will set up the terrain as they wanted it. If you're playing at home, it's a little different. And just going down here real slow like here for how we actually go off with the deployment phase. So, generally, how it starts, to figure out who's going to deploy. Because, again, deploying the terrain features, you roll you roll a dice, each of you, to see who's going to be the attacker, who's going to be the defender. And again, we've got faction terrains and everything that goes off of that dice roll. Generally, and like this says, unless specified, specified, the players alternate deploying their regiments. Alright, because remember in list building, everything's like the General's Regiment, Regiment 1, Regiment 2. Each regiment is considered a drop. And then each auxiliary unit is considered its own drop. I'm putting that in there because at the moment in the game, no one's playing with auxiliaries because there's no reason to in a competitive stance unless you're making some kind of weird meme list. But I'm future-proofing this, alright? Also, it says here, use deployment phase abilities. They made everything into an ability with the keyword to say when it happens. Okay, this is picking units from the army roster that hasn't been deployed yet, set them up, da-da-da-da-da. A lot of this is just, you know how in your game store, there's someone that's that guy and that they have to be hyper-specific and be like, well, if the rules didn't say to do X, I can do it. Or if they didn't say I couldn't do Y, I should be able to do it. This writing here with all this weird stuff is to stop that player in their tracks and just make them shut up. So you roll off attacker, defender. The attacker drops first, drops a regiment. Defender drops a regiment down onto the table to set up, back and forth until you're done. You're out of drops. All right. Then as we slowly slide down, we get to the actual battle sequence here on page 13. All right. Now here's the thing. It will say how many battle rounds are in the battle plan, right? A battle round is how long the game is. One battle round consists of 2 player turns, yours and your opponent's. Alright? If it's a team game, it's Team A's turn and Team B's turn. They have to happen, or it's not a battle round. Alright? The first battle round here, they're determining all the active players and stuff. If it's the first battle round, the player who finished setting up their army first decides who takes the first turn. This is why in list building, sometimes some armies need to be lower drops. If you're coming from 3rd edition, you remember the old 1-drop army from a battle regiment, right? Where it was like, cool, my army's built, I need to go first. Or I need to give away the turn so I can go. So this is where that comes in, right? That if again, newer players, this is just in the list building thing that we talked about in our other video. And so many troops can fit in so many regiments and go down on the table. This is something to keep in mind of do you want to go first or not. Some people on the internet will say, yes, you need to go first so you can get out to an early lead and force your opponent to take a double turn so they don't score battle tactics. Some people say, no, make sure the other person goes first so that they give you the early double turn and you just smash their army. Who cares if they ran up the score turn 1? If they don't have an army by their turn 2, they can't score anyway. So generally with these lines of thought, you'd think that you'd want to take lesser drops to make this decision in the first battle round. And then there are some armies that are built in such a way with screens and such so that they end up not caring if they go first or second. In a screen, again, this is a 101 video, is like a cheap unit that's, again, cheap points-wise, that is just there to body block and protect your more important stuff. The importance of a unit can change throughout the course of a game. And the screens hopefully are cheap enough that you don't mind losing them. If your opponent's army spends their whole turn killing 200 points, and then they're close to you because they're stuck on the corpses of those 200 points, and you just drill them with your 1800 points, you're probably going to win. Unless something really, really silly happens with dice. But these are the decisions you got to make here in determining who's the first player in the first battle round to take the turn. If it is not the first battle round, you have a priority roll. The thing people don't fully understand why it's scary or important. They just automatically assume it's horrible. It's not. keeps the game exciting. Where, again, it's you each roll a dice. Dice in Warhammer, as we remember, just a d6. Whoever rolls higher chooses who can take the turn in the next battle round. And if it's a tie, the tie goes to whoever took first the previous battle round. So mathematically, it is not likely you actually get double turned if you go first. The ability to be the tiebreaker is honestly great. The thing that can go with this, though, is, as we know, if you choose to take a double turn, you're not allowed to score a battle tactic. You can still score up to 6 points in your turn by scoring as much primary points as you can, but the 4-point battle tactic you are not allowed to attempt. Now, the thing here is, if you are given the double turn for whatever reason, or given priority from your opponent, because you want to, say, burn their double turn early because they're not in that good of a position, then that'll force them to not, you'd think, not score a battle tactic. But if they are given the double turn, they are allowed to choose a battle tactic. You're only not allowed to choose a battle tactic when you yourself take the double turn. This is very important to have that distinction. I need it said. I know it's going to sound crazy. If you do not choose to take the double turn and are just gifted the turn, you can score a battle tactic. Life is good. It's fine. Then we have a new mechanic to people coming from third and from fourth. Hey, we're learning together. This underdog mechanic. Whichever player has the fewest points for the, is the underdog for the battle round. If they're tied, there is no underdog unless the rules of the battle plan say something like roll off and choose an effect. I like this mechanic in that if you are just kind of coasting like 1 point under, because what you get as the underdog is an extra command point for the round. Remember, you only get 4 command points for the battle round. It's your turn and their turn, and counter charge costs 2 command points. Casting a spell in your opponent's turn costs a command point. All out attack, all out defense costs a command point. Redeploy costs a command point. I know I almost said that there, but follow me, camera guy. 6 abilities that everyone used to love to spam. That cost 7 command points to do them. You only have 4. So the underdog mechanic can be nice. Some battle plans add on to the underdog mechanic that could be really good. They can get like an extra +1 to hitting an enemy objective in enemy territory. Some of them, you just are happy you get the command point. And, again, this goes to anything that happens at the start of the battle round now of, like, different buffs, debuffs, bonuses. Like, I'm going to harp on this because it comes to mind really quickly. Tzeentch's Enlightened on Disc have an ability at the start of the battle round where if, the player goes second in the battle round, they get a buff. Sometimes War Scrolls have these things. Sometimes different armies have these things thrown onto them. And then we get to the more, recognizable parts of a turn. And it's the start of the turn. You still have a hero phase, movement phase, shooting phase, charge phase, combat phase. We threw away Battle Shock. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we threw it away. And anybody else listening, we threw away Battle Shock, all right? It's gone, it's done, that's it. So how does this actually work here? What are these phases? In the hero, let's be honest, they do seem a little obvious, but if you had no idea and you just walk up to this, you got no clue. So let's talk about this. The hero phase is generally when you do your spells, your prayers, your buffs to your army, your debuffs to your opponent. Sometimes there are teleports that key off into this. You do army abilities for yourself. And again, this is when that whole cast the spell in the enemy hero phase happens at the end of it. Now, Age of Sigmar is streamlined. When do these reactions all happen to different things? Some things are like immediate. We're like, hey, I'm fighting. I'm gonna, put in all out defense so my unit doesn't get killed. Some of these things are more end of phase, which we'll get to in a moment. They're the universal ones. Actually, just the page next. These universal core abilities are not what I'm looking for. We'll get to them. We'll find them. These are like the basic ones. All right, back to this page. Hold on. Follow along here. What we need to talk about next is the movement phase. It's when you move. It's great. The movement phase itself is what will win you games, because the whole point of this game, believe it or not, isn't just to kill all the stuff on the other side of the table from you. It is to go and stand on an objective and score points, and to go and move to certain places on the board and score bonus points. And then we get to the shooting phase, where you, again, shoot your ranged weapons. Nice, easy. You can all-out attack to go and get your units +1 to hit. You can all-out defense to get +1 to save. Then at the end of the shooting phase, your opponent can react and say they're going to go and shoot back at you for a command point. And at that point, it is actually too late to spend an all-out attack or all-out defense. So it just kind of happens. But they're -1 to hit you, which is nice. Then we get to charging, where one of the biggest things that happens in all levels of play of Age of Sigmar is your unit that you want to charge in to get into combat. You got to roll 2 dice to get in there, because in the movement phase you can't move within 3 inches of enemy units. So you're like, cool, man, I'm going to move up to 3. I'm going to shoot them to soften them up, and then I'm going to charge. And then you shoot so many models that your charge became harder. It happens. But that's when the charge phase happens. Charge clock. You get in there, you get ready to beat up some nerds in the combat phase. And in the charge phase, at the end of it, your opponent can spend 2 command points to counter charge, which just gives them an off-turn charge. You, as the player whose turn it is, still have priority in your abilities happen first. You charge first. You pick the first unit to fight in the fight phase. You pick your stuff to shoot first. But there are going to be plenty of times where you're like, oh, cool, I'm going to go and charge and specifically leave out my opponent's big, crazy unit that's super strong so that it doesn't fight my guys. Right? In list building, one of the things I've said for 5-6 years now, some of that even on this channel, is you want 3, because Age of Sigmar has alternating combat phases, which go right into here, where the combat phase is you pick a unit to fight, then your opponent picks a unit to fight, and then you go back and forth. You don't have to pick the same ongoing combat. Pick another unit that hasn't swung into you yet and just beat the snot out of them. When building a list, I like to have an odd number amount of melee units that are good. You know, they're good at fighting in close combat in melee, so that I can charge 3 of them in. On my turn, I pick a unit to fight, you pick a unit to fight, I pick a unit to fight. I've picked 2 to your 1. At that point, hopefully all things are going good. Right? With the counter charge, you can't just ignore your opponent's best unit and just pick off small little things that seem a little bit more feasible. Because they can just charge right in too and just mess with you. And it's something to keep in mind. Especially when there are spells that are, say, add 1 dice to your charge roll, so you're charging 3d6. If that sucker counter charges, it's gonna be pretty cool. Just, you know, things like that, and like the shooting in your opponent's shooting phase will mess up battle tactics. It has happened to everybody, and that's okay. And then when we're done with the combat phase, it's the end of the turn where we check to see, well, what points did we score? You know? Because we totally chose a battle tactic in the hero phase and didn't forget, like I did in this description here, of when you choose your battle tactic in the hero phase, where you just, again, see, what did I score? What did I do? Did I screw up? Just like my favorite YouTuber, Rocco, your boy, also a podcaster? I don't know. But you will know in your game. And this was before when we would check like the bravery and stuff for the 3rd edition people. That's gone now. That stat is actually replaced with a control score, which is how much your individual models count within the unit for controlling an objective. And then there are abilities that add to the total unit's end score when you add all that up. So like if I got a bunch of like 10 dudes with 1 control and then a +3 for the unit, I'd have 13 for my control score, much like the page this is on when you go to look this up yourself. And what that ends up tending to be, in my experience so far, is units that I would have killed previously because they would have battle shocked off are still fighting. And now I've got my stuff stuck fighting like a 3-4 wounds left situation. And I can't countercharge or do anything because now it's held in place by the last few wounds I didn't kill. So, as weird as it sounds, large hordes of models are kind of in right now. Yes, there are spells that kill hordes, and you can bring in guns and bows that specially kill hordes of infantry or hordes of cavalry. But while the game has become a lot more rock, paper, scissors, if you run into someone that doesn't have the rock to your paper, it's going to be really nice when you beat up their rock with your paper. Yeah, no, it's... Yeah. And another thing, too, about the combat phase that was a change from 3rd to 4th edition. In the combat phase, units have a combat range of 3 inches. It's listed in a bunch of abilities, like, oh, you've got a buff if you're within this unit's combat range. You got to stay outside of 3 to fight in the combat. You know, combat range is 3 inches outside of the unit. It's why you can't just walk into it, generally. You have to charge in. All the models in your unit are eligible to fight the thing if they are within 3 inches of the thing they're trying to stab, which is a whole new world, which is why a lot of these horde units are really good. Before, you used to have to spec into certain weapons like spears or halberds or pikes if you're Lumineth, wardens, where, you know, to get that reach, to get all your models in, you needed that special weapon. That might not be as nice as the other option that could do more damage or was easier to hit with. You know, that was like a balancing mechanic in that. But now that's gone. And you need to go and reevaluate, like, what is a good combat profile? What is a good weapon? Like, we live in a world right now where forged to hit and forged to wound is the standard human profile. And that's also, like, for all the undead and a lot of basic schmucks in different armies. You know? And then, like, you get, like, a Nobbler that I think is, like, 5s and 5s off the top of my head. And you're like, ooh. And almost no army has a 3s and 3s profile. Like, they're out there, but they're not common anymore. So it's really interesting to see how all that's changed now. But yeah, then you just hit the end of the turn, and then it goes to your opponent's turn, and then the whole thing goes back again. They put their battle tactic up, they do their hero phase, you could try to interrupt with a spell if you want, movement phase happens. Oh, you don't like what they're doing? End of the phase, you use the command ability to redeploy D6 inches one of your units. That changed from 3rd edition, where it used to be like a reaction immediately to a unit moved near your dudes. So now it kind of streamlines the question of, hey, do you want to use redeploy? Nah. Okay, move next unit. Hey, do you want to use redeploy? Nah. Move next unit. And then their shooting phase back at you, their charge phase, and so on and so on. And, you know, that's what a turn looks like. And then at the end of that battle round, to go into battle round 2, you roll off, you know, repeat steps. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody else coming in here, thank you for watching. Thank you for coming. You know, be nice, roll some dice, and we'll see you next time. Bye.